So I'm here with Humberto from DashDash. Humberto, would you want to give a quick intro into who you are and what DashDash is, and we can jump in?
Yeah, so my name is Humberto. I'm one of the co-founders and currently the CEO of DashDash. The other co-founder is Torben. We started this journey in 2016, and what we're building is a spreadsheet where users are in control of their ideas. So they can do all the normal crazy things they do on spreadsheets, but much more, including services, automation, and even user interfaces. But I guess we'll talk a bit about that. Very excited to be joining MakerPad. And first, thank you for creating MakerPad. It helps us all. It really raises the tide.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, I'm happy that MakerPad was sort of pulled out of me as a real sort of company, because it was just a passion thing that I was doing before, and there's just a real need for it. So yeah, we're excited with what we're building and hope to do more with awesome tools like DashDash and others. And yeah, we've got a bunch of things coming soon too. So I wonder because I haven't heard of DashDash on many podcasts. So in previous episodes, we've skipped the intro of the companies because they may be like Webflow or Bubble. People often know the stories there. So I'd love to hear a bit about the story of DashDash, where was the problem, and how did you sort of come up with what is currently on our screens?
Yeah, so I'm a consultant. I'm an engineer, and I've worked in consulting for a while. And as you know, spreadsheets are a big thing then, also in finance and accounting and pretty much everywhere. But especially in consulting, people take a lot of pride in spreadsheets and what kinds of things you can build with them. And so I've always grown used to being able to solve practically any modeling of any process with a spreadsheet. And what we noticed is that so me and Torben and the early team was that when you're working in a spreadsheet, you can model a process, you can create a to-do list or a plan or a simulation of a company. But at some point, you go out of the spreadsheet and you go execute real things, and then you come back to the spreadsheet and just update the status, etc. And what we thought is, can we widen the perimeter of things so that you actually do not have to leave the spreadsheet, or the spreadsheet itself self-updates when those real life statuses, when your real process is really working. And so from that thought came the search of, are people really looking for doing services inside spreadsheets? And obviously Google Sheets already let you to do some things natively, like check stocks and translate text, for example. They've been doing that for a while. And we thought, okay, generically, what if you can connect to any API? So if you can get more than stock data, if you can find things on LinkedIn, etc. And indeed, when we started looking on Quora and Stack Overflow and all the other forums in a pre-MakerPad era, there were lots of people asking for this, like literally lots of people asking for this. And once we dug deeper, we saw that was a real need, and spreadsheets being a very, very common thing. There's 1 billion spreadsheet users, out of which there's 30 to 40 million very, very hardcore expert spreadsheet users. We thought that this is a great market, and spreadsheets are probably ripe for some disruption.
Yeah. Are you looking at that sort of 30 to 40 million hardcore users, or are you trying to expand the amount of hardcore users with the capabilities of DashDash?
Yeah, so we're trying to expand it, obviously. This is easier said than done, as you well know. MakerPad, if I understand correctly, you also have different scales of users, right? People who are more pro and actually are contributors who write on MakerPad as well as read from MakerPad.
Yeah.
So it is no code for us, which seems to be the topic we're getting at, is what enables regular people, so business people, people who have other things to do other than engineering, to access engineering-like features or real engineering features. And for us, no-code is really more of a property rather than a category of products, right? We don't consider ourselves like we are no-code first. Right? We are a spreadsheet, and we built a spreadsheet with a no-code mentality and philosophy inside. And so, for example, things which you find on Google Sheets, like having Google Apps scripts, and things that you find on Excel, like VBA, you don't find in DashDash, because those are basic violations of the no-code proposition, which is people should be able to do those things if there is a simple way for them to do it. And we think that there is a simple way for people to do side effects and create tables from other tables and talk to services. And so we don't create this side language that is more complex than it needs to be.
Yeah. So did you, I mean, how long did it take for you to sort of identify this need and then start building it? Is it still in private beta? Is that right?
Yes, it's in private beta. We are a bit short of 1,000 users already on the platform, out of which we have a couple hundred people who are quite engaged with the platform. And who uses, we even have a cohort of people who uses us daily, and who's like very keen, executes dozens of thousands of requests every week. So it took a while. So we got out of our previous jobs, Torben and I, in July 2016. We had our first line of code written, I believe, in the 2nd of January 2017, and then it was about 2 years to really reach a mature alpha. So it takes a lot of time to build a spreadsheet. We obviously, and this is the way to do it, to trivialize life. It's going to be easy building a business.
Yeah.
And how hard can a spreadsheet be? It's pretty hard. There's lots and lots of small details, like how you do conversion between values. Like in a spreadsheet, you can sum a date with a currency, right? And there's an expected value. And we want things to be recognizable by users, so we want to play along. So it took us about 2 years to move from nothing to a very stable alpha, and now it's going to be, I think, until middle of this year until we release this thing in full to everyone.
Awesome. So I suppose that over that time period, it was sort of when no code was becoming trendy, or there was people starting talking about no code as a thing. When you first started, were you even thinking of it as no code, or were you just thinking of building this spreadsheet with extra functionality, or was it like, how do we do this for non-technical people? What was your thinking there?
Well, I can't claim credit for any no-code-like marketing term. That's an awesome term, even though there's ample debate. I think there's always debate on coin terms. But actually, our vision since the beginning was very, very close to a no-code proposition. So the way we explain our roadmap internally and even to investors and everyone else who is interested, is that we see that there's 3 main challenges in building tools that have this strong no-code proposition. So the first one is the creator challenge, right? So people want to create things and they need this IDE, they need this tool where they express their ideas, and this language where they express it can be visual, can be textual, can be cell-based. This language has to be powerful. So it's kind of like the parallel to the coding tools of engineers. They also have repositories and terminals and hosting. And when you move to the no-code world, you have to have only one tool for that. Like people use Airtable or Webflow. They don't need to manage 20 different tools all at once. And so first, it's the creator problem. The second one is the audience problem, meaning when you create something, then you want to share it with others. You rarely want to create something just for yourself. You want things to be shareable and scalable in a social way. And so what is the output of what you're building, right? With Webflow, it's beautifully designed websites, right? And with DashDash, and we are faced with this question, like spreadsheets are not pretty by default, right? And so with this philosophy that we needed to solve the audience problem, we created publishing, meaning you create a button, you click a button, then we generate a web page with inputs and buttons and whatever you need. And then the third challenge, so creator challenge, audience challenge, and then the community challenge, which is actually something which you guys started solving, and thanks for that. Which is no programming language and no coding style has ever been popular in a vacuum. You always need ample discussion, you always need ample examples, tutorials, templates, all of these kind of forum-esque places. They need to exist. They have existed before in coding, they have existed before in spreadsheets like MrExcel.com or excelform.com that have hundreds of thousands of users, but we need something that is a bit more actionable, kind of like how you guys built MakerPad, meaning you can actually look for an example and I already see how it works. It's not just question and answer. So those three challenges were, since the beginning, something that we already knew that we had to happen. I think that this matches perfect. We have not seen any tool which claims to be no code that hasn't got a strong position in creator, audience, and community.
Yeah, I think it's funny that lots of these companies that now either the community sees as no code or they now position themselves as no code never started off as no code, like from the get-go. So it's funny to see now companies starting that start as a no code tool. Because like you said, I mean, there's debates around what to call it, this movement or whatever it is. I think it's just an easy way for people to identify what the thing is or how you can use it. But I think, everyone's trying to make software easier to use for not just technical people, but non-technical people. So
it's very interesting. Like the Slack, we were at a conference a couple of weeks ago in the US, and we had a panel of CIOs, many CIOs CIO of Boeing and Nike and stuff like that, and Slack was explaining their vision, and they were showing their no-code product, which is their automations, their new automations product, and they are very cautious to call it no-code, obviously, because with Slack they're already an enterprise platform, and enterprise people are kind of still a bit scared over the shadow IT question. Like they don't want mushrooms to pop up in an already populated IT infrastructure. But it's clear that even heavyweights understand that they now need to have a solution, a powerful solution for regular people. And I guess we will see where governance falls in this over the next 5 years or so. But it's a super interesting topic that even big, large public companies are developing products with our community in mind.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even there's the enterprise company Uncork, they brand themselves, they have like no code in their heading, where other companies don't necessarily. They might have like application development or something like that. That you do see some people just sort of tackling it head on, and they've got big companies using them. So I think it's becoming more widespread, and it'd be interesting to see how it happens. And like you said, it's not just about building the thing. There's got to be like the example of how do I do this thing then? Like how does that completely translate to the thing that I'm trying to build or I'm trying to do? And obviously we're trying to do a lot of that. But what do you think is like a good way for people to be able to expand their knowledge there? Or is it more about you've got to be curious. You've got to see that, okay, DashDash, you can use that for sales and data enrichment. So now I've got to go deep on this. Or is there just a world where there is a tutorial for every single scenario?
It's a super interesting question. We've had endless debates on this. It seems like the world operates on different levels. For this, at least our perspective, like you have tools like the iPhone, right? You buy an iPhone and there's very little tutorials and very little things. It is meant to be understandable immediately and without any introduction. And this kind of mechanical reaction requires a lot of study of how humans interact with tools. And I guess it requires massive investment and a lot of years until we get to that stage. Because other than that, I think that the best avenue is really tutorials and as much social as they can be. Meaning, you are on a tool. There is this coding tool called Glitch. I don't know if you're aware of them. You are, obviously. And they have created this concept, which I don't know if it's original, called remixing, which we absolutely love. So essentially, you create some code, backend and frontend in their IDE, then it ships the JavaScript and the backend JavaScript as well to an instance of a server, and then once that is live, you can access the published version. You can access the actual website which you built. There's a little button, Remix. It essentially copies the source code back into your own workspace. And I think that this is going to be where things become interesting, is when the actual output, the audience solution which you created, the product which you created, already has an input in, I built this thing and you're using this product, but hey, we are happy to share how we built you. I think this is going to be the major thing. It's not going to be you solving your problem in a vacuum to try to be better than others. It's going to be, we solve the problem, you can also solve this problem equally.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting you've said that, because I do know Glitch, and we have a remix feature on MakerPad. We have our, like, when people post their projects, we're trying to look for the community to post, oh, I built this awesome thing using whatever tools. And then there's a way that says remix, which isn't quite as technically capable as Glitch right now. It doesn't copy everything straight over. But I think, yeah, we've got that. We're trying to build that mentality in. If you show off something that you've built with a certain number of tools or something, someone could copy that. If you're like detailing how you did it, someone could remix it and do something similar with that same stack or the same tool. So we're trying to look at ways to encourage that in the community also, and make people aware of that. And obviously things like Webflow have their cloning feature, so there are local sort of native ways to clone things and duplicate things. So hopefully that our remix feature just sort of points towards the tools themselves to say, okay, we'll go and download this template from here, go and download this spreadsheet from here, and do it that way. But yeah, that's what we're
absolutely. I think that the good thing, and which is bad for us in some ways in terms of pressure, the good thing about the MakerPad is that it forces everyone to play at a higher level, right? So if someone has a mix feature, we actually planned this since 3 years ago, but it takes time to build it. But the fact that some tools like Webflow have it and Glitch have it makes everyone else also have to have it. And I think that this peer pressure is what generates open source projects and things like that. Like, to compete, you have to be good to the community, otherwise people don't like you. And I think that people inherently want to share, but it's never a high priority until you make it a priority. And I think that MakerPad has this I would say responsibility to kind of force us all into being better community players, right? Being more standards-based, not letting people lock down. We chose a spreadsheet standard. We didn't choose to build a very custom spreadsheet to lock down, because we feel like people should not be. Spreadsheets are pretty standard and pretty developed, and we should not force people to live inside a golden gate. I think that it's okay in the beginning. All these tools are popping up, but I would be very surprised that in 5 years, tools like Airtable and Glide and Nas and all of the other players are still closed. I think that we will be extremely open towards MakerPads and other communities and other ways to interact.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think for me, it's one of the best ways to learn how to build that thing or do the thing. It's starting with something. It's not just starting from scratch necessarily, because sometimes that's one of the biggest barriers. And there's no code. It's bringing down those barriers of, okay, you weren't technical, so you couldn't build this. So here's the thing for you to do the thing that you want to do. But now, like, the barrier almost gets moved, and then it's like, okay, well, but I want to do sales stuff in this thing. So it's like, okay, well, let's move you to this further point. and do it that way. I think, yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think coming back to your previous point, I think you also need curiosity, right? Like, if you have zero curiosity, if people don't like reading books and if people don't like riding bicycles, then they won't like no code. They won't like no code tools. Like you need some sort of excitement over experimenting and this stability in instability, right? Like the bicycle is the best example, right? A bicycle standing still will fall. Like you need to keep moving for you to actually enjoy it and for you to actually get some value out of it. We are very fortunate that in a spreadsheet everything is about cells. Everything's very standardized, right? Every little element you put in that is a cell, and so in our templates we can also have steps. So we can actually deconstruct anything which you build and actually go by it cell by cell. We can actually say, this is the first cell, and now you do that other cell, and you do that other cell. So the fact that we have this pretty big standardization helps us even create these intermediary steps. There is a template, but we can also go step by step. But in the end, you can never remove the first friction, which is people need to be somewhat curious about what they're doing, about their processes, and about how they're trying to be better, more scalable, faster, cheaper.
Yeah, for sure. I think also it's been really interesting to watch tools like Webflow and Airtable, specifically those because I've spoken to them quite a lot, that they're like building a tool which can be used for so many things. And previously in the startup space, it's more like you've got to solve a specific thing for a specific person. But some of these tools by nature are very broad in what they could be used for. And then it actually comes down to the community, like people in the MakerPad community and other community platforms for no code. They're the ones who are pushing boundaries and almost showing the tools themselves. Oh, by the way, you can build this thing. There was the example is like someone built the Squarespace editor or something within Webflow is like one of those examples that Vlad was like, holy shit, this is crazy that someone's done that. But it's like, yeah, you're using the tools to push how you wanted it to do. And I think that's what excited me about no code in the early days was always trying to launch other ideas, but just like putting these things together and people were like, how did you do that? Like, that's not supposed to be how you use Zapier or whatever it was. So it's funny to see how people make them.
It's a very common theme, right? So we also started with, and the use case that fits more naturally into DashDash are things related to data enrichment and finding, like you can get an end-to-end lead generation flow going pretty fast. But then some people just started connecting different things, and for example, there's one company that actually draws these polygons on Google Maps and searches on location, and then they find offices there, and then they feed their internal backend system and to market their solution to them automatically. And so people do torture tools by default. I think that this is the good thing. And actually, one of the stories which we keep hearing about building tools in general, not only limited to no code, but also including InDesign and all of these other tools, is that they sometimes take a while to really gather the momentum, especially because people are doing many different things. So people tell us, many users and including some investors, that they had Airtable on for a couple of years, and they use it sporadically until at some point someone in the company found an amazing use case, and then everyone piled on, and then it started becoming a thing. And this is super exciting because it does mean that we have to earn individual use cases. We have to solve people's problems, and many people, until you really start seeing patterns. And then Airtable found this amazing area where they're kind of like this super CMS, super simple, including the API. You don't have to go into Contentful and setting things up, and it takes you hours. And in Airtable, it maybe takes you minutes, right? I think the time, the squeezing of the time frames is the interesting factor here.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, yes, trying to find those curious no-code champions who help sort of shape some of that stuff and almost do some of the product marketing for you. So let's talk about some of the use cases of DashDash then. Like, what are some of, you touched on there with a few of the stories. What are some of the patterns you're already seeing? I know it's early, but are there sort of situations in sales, marketing, or what are the use cases that you're seeing a lot of?
Yeah. So I'll just tell you three broad things which we've seen. So the first one, it's a very common thing in DashDash. You have an end-to-end lead generation flow. So people find companies, for example, on Crunchbase using our functions, type equals search Crunchbase, search companies Crunchbase, and then you find the people on LinkedIn for those companies, and then you add those lists of people and companies into your CRM, into Pipedrive or something. This is pretty common and pretty used in DashDash. Something else, a different category is alerts. Spreadsheets were always used to do dashboards and things, but with DashDash you can automate it a bit further. For example, having Google Analytics plus Slack alerts for weekly reports. This is something that people use quite a lot, and it's very useful. People love it. And then the third type of thing is much more automation based. It's people who really use get, put, and posts to interact with their custom APIs and do things like looking areas in the geometrical area, looking for places, like companies and banks and consultancy companies, then feeding those into your own backend system to do sales. There's this super big online restaurant in Madrid who has done this very, very profitably for themselves.
Awesome. So who are the, from those use cases, I guess, what are the typical customers that you see? Is it like the individuals within tech companies, or like you said, there's a restaurant in Madrid? What are the use, like, how have you identified the customers, or is that just been like a pull a bit more from people looking for these solutions?
Yeah, well, usually people find us before we find them, which is very fortunate. We are extremely grateful for this. So we have a waiting list of many thousands of people waiting to get into DashDash. I think that thing comes with being a spreadsheet and a no-code tool, especially. Generally, the way we identify them, they are really maker people at heart. They've always been so operations managers, marketing managers, but people who really don't get satisfied with status quo and already in some form were known to be the spreadsheet torturers of their companies, and people who already have something built in Zapier for themselves or IFTT in their own personal life. So it's people who hack things for a living, people who are the first to know, the people who were the first in their cohort of friends to buy Macs and to build their own websites and to have their own blogs. This kind of behavior is the precursor, I think, of people finding us in particular, probably also other tools. I think you would find that our users are very much like the users of an Airtable or Glide or something else like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of our customers find us. We don't do any like outreach of sorts. Like obviously we're doing this podcast and I tweet sometimes. So it is like, I think, curious people tend to attract other curious people who, like, you just talk about these things and people saying, oh, I managed to do this thing in this tool or discovered this thing. And it's an interesting little flywheel in and of itself. What do you think is the future for sort of these no-code companies and the ecosystem in general? Do you think there's going to be more of a vertical push where people sort of stay in one tool and that's just like they have their one thing? Or do you think this becomes more of a stack-based ecosystem where people bring in DashDash and Zapier and Airtable and Webflow as part of building a company, and that is maybe more popular, or especially in the early days of a company, maybe that's where people start.
Yeah. Well, first on your previous comment on social, we are very envious of the type of attention you guys get online, and it is something that I think all tools and everyone should try to have. I think you guys do a terrific job, and you get all the love which you guys deserve. But I'm just gonna put it out there: we are absolutely envious of.
Thanks so much.
In regards to how we see the future, I think that as with everything, there's going to be a mix. There's going to be players who do it all and who integrate and who achieve this massive scale and can do everything, kind of like Apple and Google. They have the phone and the operating system and everything. And then there's going to be more specialized people who build only components or apps. There's going to be super large single stack things like Facebook only works on social. And there's going to be different types of things. So I believe that there will be tools which live in your dock. And certainly it was our conscious choice to build a spreadsheet which fulfills the current functions as well as the more novel no-code kind, and being able to export its website, etc. I think that we are a tool that we want to live inside users' docs. We want to earn that trust and that respect. So I think that there will be a handful of those tools that always live inside your doc. There's going to be some tools which run in the background and which you go into just to check things and to change them, like Zapier.
Yeah.
And I think that there's going to be tools which are probably a mixture of those. So I don't think that we'll see a formula. Obviously, after a few big players are established, all that's going to be left for a while before the next revolution is going to be like individual components. So I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a Zapier which is focused on image analysis and someone who builds components just for Zapier, perhaps, like just like you have dark kitchens that are just building burgers for Uber Eats. I think you will have people building just very specific components for these platforms. But there will be a few platforms. I think that spreadsheets will always be there, and people will always need a spreadsheet. And definitely we hope that DashDash plays part in that future. I think people will need databases, and so Airtable and the likes of Airtable will exist. They will obviously move upstream and try to have a full stack solution. They currently do not have an internal layer of presentation, publishing solution, so to speak. But pretty sure that's on their roadmap. Other tools like Cloud will probably try to integrate backwards into the back end, having more database-like features. I think for a while this is going to be fun. Everyone's going to have infinite cache and be building awesome products. I think that there will be standardization coming. As some people start claiming spaces, the mind span will be too big to overcome, right? Like at some point, if Airtable really conquers databases online for regular people, it's going to be super hard for the next guy to really create that. There will maybe be 2 or 3. It's funny how Microsoft has Access, right, which is Airtable 20 years ago or even more. And again, they were subject to being disrupted. And I guess this will happen with it. All tools are disrupted sooner or later. But I think that there will be, again, to summarize, tools living in the dock, tools that you visit frequently. There's going to be 2 or 3 or 4 integrated platforms that are full stack. And the rest is going to be a massive and very profitable business of building components to that. And those people are going to be the ones that have the least risk, right? They're going to be no-code people themselves, right? You can build an API yourself or just recombine an API to find something very specific. For example, you have a company, give me an URL, and I'll give you the number of employees, the email and phone number of the CEO, and their last round, right? While we have Crunchbase and some other tools to do that, there is no block which you can automatically add to many of these tools in a very productized form. someone will create it and someone will achieve scale with that block.
Yeah, for sure.
I
think
yeah, it's going to be terrific. I think it's going to be a brilliant cutthroat business, and with obviously the consumer, the end user being the winner there.
Yeah, I think it's funny that I built MakerPad on Webflow. It's still built on Webflow, but initially I used a link to a type form to take a payment and then send them back to like a password protected page. But then MemberStack came along as like Webflow first membership stuff. So then that was like purely about that. So a lot of people, when they think of Webflow and memberships, they automatically think of MemberStack because that's the sort of first and foremost thing that people are tending to use at the moment. Then there's someone called Chris who built JetBoost, and he's like added, because everyone on the Webflow wish list are asking about multi-filters, so he like just built that component, like you said, just picking off the things on the wish list that people don't, like big companies can't get to, or they can't prioritize over other big features. And that's just been a thing that has forever lived in tech, right? People looking at roadmaps of public companies or something and building these smaller components that thousands of their users want to have.
Yes, and yeah, I really this is precisely the point. The fact that we actually built a spreadsheet from scratch is that we don't believe that Microsoft or Google have the capacity to really rebuild a spreadsheet from scratch and tackle this business. Like, it's like, how likely is it that they're going to add APIs and services and kind of like a Netflix for data inside their products? Like, it's 0% chance that they're busy with cloud fights and fending off Apple and Amazon, and everyone's like fighting at the big level, and they kind of like look at probably Airtel was like, okay, that's fun, but it's not a business for us, at least not yet. And so it gives us the opportunity to fight that fight and eventually become big and have a seat at the table of disrupting the current tools. Because this all doesn't matter for anything, I guess, if we don't solve people's problems, right? And right now, you guys are probably affecting the lives of many dozens of thousands of people. But these have to reach millions of people, right? And if it doesn't reach millions of people, then no code will be kind of like this new flavor of rapid application development that already existed before, right? But we all think, and certainly we believe, that now is the time where technology has evolved to a place and APIs have standardized communications enough, and computing power is cheap enough that the solutions are there to be built that allow everyone to do this kind of stuff. Yeah,
for sure. No, I totally agree. With the big players, I know recently AppSheet was acquired by Google. Do you think we're going to see, like you said, it's going to be more full stack things? Do you think we're going to be seeing a lot more acquisitions and people buying up smaller no-code companies in the next sort of 12 months?
I think so. There's definitely interest. We've been approached by, I think, all the big name brands out there just to know what we're doing. Not with acquisition offers. We're very early, but it feels like, for example, for Google, I have no idea, no insight into how that happened. But clearly, it seems like their app builder was failing relative set metrics, and they looked at AppSheet and said, okay, this is simpler, faster, and we can acquire it for nothing. Our stock market valuation has climbed 20 times the price to buy this thing, and so if they're doing a better job than we are, we're just going to replace our offering with that. I think that some players are just doing it because they want to have something in this space. I think some players really believe in this thing and are pouring resources, right? Like you see, Salesforce has been for a long time investing in companies and buying companies that allow you to interconnect different tools, right? It's not necessarily no code, but it's slowly walking towards that. And I think they started with Salesforce CRM, a relatively boring area, and now they have everything that you can plug into it. You have analytics, you have marketing, they have spreadsheet-like interfaces and whatnot, and so they really believe in the ecosystem of connecting tools and letting salespeople sell more for that super large vertical. But I think that we will see acquisitions. I'm not sure if Airtable and Webflow are interested in that. I think that they can still grow a lot and become a lot more important. I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we will see just a tightening again, and things won't become standards. They won't become part of the community. They will just be in some other walled garden where you need just one login to access all of Google's or Apple's or Amazon's tools, and this is not good for people.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, well, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a great, been really fun conversation. First time we've spoken, which has been great. Hopefully won't be the last. Is there anything you wanted to talk about, or if not, you can just sort of let people know where to find you, and yeah, we can close there.
Well, already people can find us at DashDash.com. It is dash.com, kind of like describing the equal sign. And also on twitter.com/DashDash. You can join our waiting list. We will be killing the waiting list and opening the gates over the next couple of months with many exciting things. But just overall, in terms of topics to talk to, I'm just curious at how do you think that you will, coming back to the previous topic, the topic we spoke maybe 15 minutes ago, of how do you see the standardization and the creation of interplay, right? Because every player now has APIs, and so APIs are a way of connecting things, but it's not necessarily choice, right? Like if you build something very complex on Airtable, like how well can you export it to some other system? I've seen yesterday someone creating something of like SQL to Airtable or Airtable to SQL. There was like a log post with some diagrams. Do you see that this is important first, that we have this kind of interplay, and what do you see the part of MakerPad in that?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a huge space where we need engineers and developers to build tools to help us like extend our work on no-code tools. So yeah, like when people start hitting the limits of Airtable, whether that's the record limit or whether it's the capability limit, there needs to be like a way to transition over these things and scale it a different way. And I think at the moment, lots of no-code tools or people building with no-code aren't there yet. So it's maybe not been a high priority, but we're definitely going to be looking at like who are people going to be able to build these types of things. So we think it's really important, and yeah, always trying to keep our eyes open for that. And I think we will start seeing some tools like that soon. Awesome.
Well, there is everything. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, and thank you so much.
And we'll be talking soon for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I'll let you know when this is coming out. Thanks a lot. Speak to you soon.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.